Hello there, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching this. And here now we have our special guest, Mr. Adrian Tchaikovsky, the great sci-fi writer and author, the creator of such great novels like Children of Time, and the Shadows of the Apt series. So that's great to have him here. So I hope we will have as much fun as we do speaking to him. Okay, so Adrian, first and foremost, I'd like to ask you a couple of things. So I am Russian, but I teach English in high school. I'm trying to be the interpreter here, so I would be greatly pleased if you will be easy to me and speak as plain, as simple as possible, so I could catch your words and translate them into Russian. And in cases I'll raise my hand, and you have a pause, or have a break, and I'll translate it the part of your speech into Russian. Don't you mind?
Okay, that's good.
Okay, let's go. Well, Adrian, our first and the common question for our guests. Would you mind telling us why and how had you become a writer? What made you so? What made you to step on this path?
So I've always been very interested in telling stories for other people. Earlier, this came about through role-playing games and other pastimes like that. And then I came across a series of books called the Dragonlance Chronicles, which were basically Dungeons and Dragons games turned into books. And that sort of turned on a light bulb in my head to say, this is something I could do. And that started me writing. And as it happened, for a long time, I couldn't do it because my early writing was very bad. But
don't be so harsh to yourself.
Oh, well, you've not seen it. This is a long time before anything that got into print. But I got better and better through practice, and then eventually I got good enough that I was able to get a book into print.
So you like to tell stories, and you started doing so exactly how? I mean, in writing. What was your what I am looking through your Wikipedia page, and well, the Empire in Black and Gold. Is it your? It's looks like your opus magnum, isn't it? Isn't it?
So Empire in Black and Gold was my first book to get into print, and it's certainly a part of the largest series of books that I've written. I mean, I don't even know if a publisher would allow a writer to write a 10-book series. No, it seemed very much the normal thing at the time, with George R.R. Martin and Stephen Erickson writing their big series. But I think I'm unlikely to go beyond 3 books.
That's trilogy
at the moment. So nowadays, so I have just I'm doing a trilogy, the Architects trilogy at the moment in science fiction. But 10 books is a lot. I think that 10 books is not something I'm going to do again. And as a series, I think it went very well. I can certainly look at the earliest books and see that my style is still developing, but certainly by the end of the first 4 books, which is if I say the first plot arc, you know what I mean by that. So the first 4 books are a complete sort of story in themselves, and by the time I get there, I think I've pretty much hit my stride as a as a sort of a professional writer.
Okay, thank you. Well, Adrian, there is a question from Vlad. He's asking if it's true that you, when you write a big, long series of books, and the more books you write, the more pressure you get from publishing house. They need it in some proper way, in some proper volume, etc. Is it right? Is it true?
It's not an experience I had. I suspect that if you had a series that was doing really very well in the kind of, Brandon Sanderson, George R.R. Martin level of doing well, then yes, you probably do, because you get more and more of the publisher's resources wrapped up in the project, and everyone is very much counting on every book doing better than the last book, or at least as well as the last book. And so I imagine it must get a bit tense between the author and the publishers as more and more expectation is placed on the new book of the series.
Thanks. Eden, would you mind telling us how could you push through all those problems you had during your writing, during your work? I mean, perhaps there were denials, or somebody didn't want to publish you, or maybe you had just a creative crisis, or how's it called properly? I don't know. What made you think that I'm right? I'm doing the best and the right thing here, and they will read my books and they'll be happy.
So it took me about 15 years of writing books to get Empire in Black and Gold published. And to be honest, towards the end of that, I was getting kind of desperate and going a bit crazy with it. I was absolutely convinced all the way through that time that my writing was absolutely fantastic and basically made of gold, and they were fools for not publishing every word I'd written. I later went back and reread a lot of my older work, and a lot of it was not very good. In fact, the two books before Empire, I have been able to rewrite and have got published, but before that, they weren't good enough to even put that work in. So it goes to show that just having the certainty that what you're writing is sort of fantastic stuff is not necessarily enough. And honestly, if I had been in a position to get more outside criticism of my work, I might have got into print considerably quicker. So, I mean, if we're talking about kind of problems to overcome as a writer, I think it's that, for me, it was that period before I got into print. Since I've got the first books published, I haven't really stopped. I don't suffer from writer's block, for example. I've never run out of ideas. I've had a few books that have gone off the rails and I've needed to stop and rewrite large chunks of them. But in general, I just write and then I finish it and I submit. I have a very, I suppose, a fairly mechanical process that just turns out books fairly reliably.
And so, well, Adrian, how did it come to Warhammer 40K?
Partly was my son got into Warhammer, but it's also I used to play Warhammer games myself way back, which would have been what, Warhammer Fantasy Battle 3rd edition, and the very first, I think have my original copy of Warhammer 40K from when it first came out back in 1990.
You mean Rock Trader or something like that?
Yes, sorry, Rogue Trader. You're absolutely right. Yes, which I mean, I'm not much of a war gamer, but I really liked a lot of the setting. There was a lot of very interesting detail they put in there. Most of which didn't really make it into the war game itself, but has kind of crept in later, I think. And so when my son got into the figures, I thought, well, actually, I know a lot of people who write for the Black Library books, so I will pitch them some stories and see how I do.
So Adrian, those guys you knew, well, I mean, concerning the writing for Games Workshop, you mean the other authors or some managers in authors, yeah?
Yes, so Sarah Corkwell and Gav Thorpe and Mike Brooks, and quite a few others. It's yes, I mean they're we go to a lot of the same conventions, and they're a fun crowd. So yes, I thought it's quite an honor to be joining their ranks with the novella that's coming up.
Well, so how has it happened exactly? You called or you emailed, and you made a story. You how you published it, or how did you do that? You gave it to them, and they looked at it and they, oh well, that's fine. Let's work. Here is a contract.
I mean, not quite. So what I did is I got a contact and got in touch with them by email, and I pitched them a story idea that I'd had, and then they explained to me why that wouldn't work in the 40k universe, and we went backward and forward about 5 or 6 times, because Games Workshop are very, very keen for everything that's written in their universe to fit with everything else, and so they have a very strict editing procedure. But eventually we got an idea and an outline of the story that they were happy with, and I wrote that, and it needed a few more changes. My favorite change was I'd written a character talking about agricultural worlds, and that the one he was on was not the sort of pleasant green agricultural world he was used to. And they told me, well, you can't have that, because there are no pleasant green worlds in this entire universe. They're all horrible. And then with the Ascension Day, the novella, which is coming out.
Well, Adrian, when you conclude your point, would you mind just maybe hinting or telling us what was the first concept?
So what
before changes.
The main change was what I wanted to play with the idea of a kind of a rogue inquisitor.
A rogue inquisitor?
Yeah, who had turned against the Imperium, and I think with Games Workshop, they very much like characters to kind of stick within the particular rules of a faction, and I was very so, well, rogue inquisitors are not a thing we really want to have in the books at all. We want them to basically be beyond their loyalty, at least, to be beyond question. So they do terrible things, but they do them for the Imperium.
The Imperium. Yeah, thank you. So Adrian, and from this concept, from these changes, the short story Grown in Darkness was born, or you mean your Day of Ascension novel?
Kind of both. So my original idea was that the events in Day of Ascension would involve a lot of the same characters and follow up from Grown in Darkness, and as it turned out, that was the thing that kind of didn't work. So in the end, although they both involve the Genestealer cult, they're completely separate and have no characters in common.
So we can't have Grown in Darkness like an aperitif before Day of Ascension.
I mean, I think they both look at the commonality is really that they both look at why something as sort of outwardly horrible as the Genestealer cult might actually be attractive, given how actually horrible living in the Imperium can be for just ordinary people.
Oh, well, we love such things. Okay, Adrian. So concerning the kind of these stories, a short story and the novel both, can we call Genestylers your favorite faction?
So it's a weird thing, but it's fairly normal for me. The things I'm interested in almost any kind of setting are the ones that are furthest away from like the normal human. So I like Genestealers, and I like orcs and Eldar and things like that. I don't think I would ever write a straight up story about the Space Marines, for example, or the Astra Militaris. The other thing you get in Ascension Day are the Adeptus Mechanicus, and they're interesting to me because they are, because of the whole cyborg replacement and the weirdness you get from that. It's in, and for the same reason in my other writing, I'm very interested in sort of aliens and animals and points of view that you don't normally get. And it's certainly sorry, I'll slow down. I know I speak too fast. It certainly seemed to me that the Genestealers had a lot of really interesting lore about them, but there wasn't that much that had been written about in Black Library compared to a lot of the other parts of the setting.
Well, Adrian, you have just told there is a few books written about Genestylers in Black Library, which makes us to ask you: have you ever read Peter Fahavary, Cults of Genestylers?
I have not, I'm afraid. So certainly, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of Black Library work. So the research I did for the story was to pick up the essentially the army books, which give a detailed rundown of the faction. Because the other thing I'm aware of is that Games Workshop lore gets updated quite a lot, and new things get brought in. And I wanted to be working with the most up-to-date versions of the factions and creatures that I was using.
Well, Adrian, so we had a couple. Actually, we had two such conversation with Mike Brooks, your colleague.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and with GevTop we had one. Mike Brooks told us that when he got his project in Warhammer 40k, Games Workshop sent him a list of sources and a list of literature a writer needs to read before write about something. Did they do such things for you?
They didn't actually, which surprises me because I suspect that Mike was probably going in with more starting knowledge than me. But I don't know. I don't know why they didn't. I mean, I possibly they were confident enough in the story idea or the synopsis that I sent in, or possibly they were just planning on holding my hand a bit more for that first story. But no, I didn't get a reading list at all.
Strange, because Mike he told us that when he got his Alferis, head of Hydra, about Primarch, novel about Primarch, when he got it, and he got such size reading list, and to read about and to have sources he will need to cross with, he will need to attend to, not to ruin some plot, and anyway, when we read his book, he got he got one scene. There was an event which was already written by another author, and Games Workshop didn't give him this short story from that author, and he wrote this event in his own book, and he had described it in the completely different way. So with the really different outcome, just like plus and minus.
Oops.
Just like literally. So
I think my advantage might simply have been that I was working in an area where there wasn't that existing lore. So the planet that I'm dealing with was one I'd made up. So there weren't any events, there weren't any named characters that I was using. So I don't. It's possible that I was simply in a position where nothing I was going to do, unless I decided to completely reinvent, what Genestylers were or something like that, was going to clash with anything that anyone had previously written.
Perhaps. I'll translate it, Adrian, if you don't mind. Adrian, from the point of humanity in Warhammer 40k, the Genestylers are almost the most abominable faction. It's they're quite they're disgustingly, literally changing the sacred human genocode and transforming it into something alien. What did you feel writing about them? Did you like it, or maybe it was disgusting for you too?
Well, I mean, I mean, writing about the alien is very much my thing, and especially writing about the alien in a sympathetic way. So, like you say, they are the Genestylers, and their masters, the Tyranids, are set up to be the worst of all possible kind of threats. Arguably even more so than chaos in a lot of ways, and so it was an interesting challenge to say, well, I will write a story from the point of view of Genestealer cultists, and make them sympathetic, and potentially make the cult sympathetic as a force within the Imperium, because that's it. Because it's a challenge. Because it's hard work to do, and I suppose when people see how things turn out in Day of Ascension, I guess I'll see whether people are won over to the cult.
Oh, way, just like that. Oh, it's strange words you say. It's not strange. I mean strong words you say. Strong words you say. It will be it will be quite a challenge. So I'll translate it. Adrian, you have just told us about the sympathetic way of describing Tyranids and Genestylers. I have just remembered one thing. I just guess you like it. There is a book in Warhammer 40k series called The Devastation of Baal. It's about Tyranids of High Fleet Leviathan attacking the mother planet of Blood Angels, Space Marines chapter. And there is in this book there is one plot line of just one Tyranid drop pod capsule, which is it's literally a plot line for one drop pod capsule, and it was described in a way I really felt sympathetic to this capsule. I wanted it to succeed. I wanted it to drop on the planet. Please leave. Please do it already. So it was described in such a marvelous way that. The author, it was Guy Haley, if I don't, if I remember correctly. He made me feel sympathetic to the really half sentient being. Actually, it was such a great thing, alien half sentient thing. It was such a great description of couples of microorganisms dying for making it quicker, and making it the capsule, this pod makes a turn left, and half of organisms dies for it, and in such way. So I just want to remember those feelings reading your book, The Ascension. I guess I hope I'll feel in such a great, maybe even better. Well, that's great. So Adrian, Vlad, as a big Genestylers fan, and he looks forward to your book. And here's a question that literally touches him. As a Genestylers fan, he asks if it's possible for you to write, or maybe for you to imagine, or concerning according to all you have read and all you have written, for Genestyler cult to get rogue from Tyranids, to make its own, make its own destiny, make its own fate, and be on itself. And maybe there is a synaptic link between Tyranid fleet and Genestylers, which makes them obedient. But is it maybe would you make such a thing, or is it possible, or maybe does it sound interesting for you to to tear this link and make Genestylers cult as main characters of their own story?
That's an interesting one. It is. I did think a lot about this, and I think it might be difficult to get Games Workshop on board, because I don't think it would fit with their sort of view on the function of the cult and Genestylers and Tyranids in their universe. I think there are certainly ways you could do it in the setting. Whether you could, for example, if you had two rival Tyranid fleets, it might be that you could have a cult that was kind of caught between them, and the interference between those two influences cancels each other out. Or you could have potentially a crippled fleet that wasn't able to fulfill its function in some way, but was still essentially shielding them from going into that kind of final planet devouring stage. So there are certainly ways. I'm not sure whether they would work for Games Workshop, essentially. That would the challenge would be presenting it in such a way that it was an appealing story for them.
Well, I'll translate it. You just Adrian, you have just reminded me. I've read Codex, Genestylers cult Codex, and you just reminded me about such an interesting cult on Forge World. Just like yours, I remember in the Days of Ascension, where they have conquered, the Genestylers have conquered this world, and they just pay their tithe for Imperium. They just pay their tithe, and nobody cares. Well, just whatever. They pay, we don't care. Spice must flow and so on. Yeah, so why not?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a fascinating faction to write for, and I think there is a lot of material left to explore there.
Adrian, there is an interesting question Vlad has. Don't you? Maybe you. Maybe it is precisely your idea, or maybe it happened on a case, maybe, I don't know, but was it your idea of Adeptus Mechanicus and Genestylers cult contesting like this typical contest between organics and machine?
That is certainly a part of it. I mean, there's a limit to what I can say about the novella before it's out. It's partly this the tension between the organic and the mechanical within the Adeptus. It's also one of the things that really struck me about the way the Imperium works, and I mean, especially the Adeptus Mechanicus, but also, frankly, most of the Imperium the whole Imperium is like a machine for turning people into things. And it turns sort of psychers into sort of energy to fuel the Emperor. And it turns sort of recruits off countless worlds into soldiers. And it turns everyone else into just the machinery to sustain this enormous human organism that is the Imperium. It really exists for the sole purpose of existing. And in order to exist, it uses everything, absolutely everyone and everything. And one of the things I'm looking at really is that's not so different to the Tyranids.
Even so.
The Tyranids also exist purely to continue to exist, and they also use everything they find in the same kind of way. And so, although from the point of view of the Imperium, the Tyranids are this sort of hideous blight on the universe, they're not that different.
So will we find this opinion of this similarity in the book?
It's certainly one of the points of view in the book. Obviously, whether you feel it is a kind of a correct point of view or just Genestealer propaganda is entirely down to you.
Okay, well, as always, I'll translate it. Okay. Well, Adrian, Vlad is also a big fan of Howard Lovecraft's books, and he had always seen Genestylers as a representation of this classical Lovecraftian horror in front of space greatness, about this emptiness and coldness, and those high fleets of tyrannies are like in ancient gods, which are indifferent to those small people. There is even a high fleet Dagon of tyrannies, and his question is: have you used any hints, such small parts of that classical Lovecraftian horrors in your book?
I have not. I've not specifically called out Lovecraft in my Warhammer fiction, because I think you're right. I think it is already inherently there, and that's that kind of, the cosmic horror, the teeth and the tentacles and so forth is very much a big part of the Tyranid aesthetic, and the various sort of interests and obsessions Lovecraft had with having the alien inside you and part of you is very, very clearly a Genestealer thing. And I think they're half Lovecraft and half alien, as in the film Alien.
Yeah.
Really. Sorry, give me a second. Can I just? I've got my son on the phone.
I'll translate your answer. Don't you? Okay. Well, okay, Adrian, are you here? Your macro is off.
Oh, I do beg your pardon. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So, speaking of the style, what are we going to look at? Is it going to be such chess party between masterminds from some magos and Genestylers patriarch, or is it going to be a detective story and they'll need to find a hidden Genestealer cult, or maybe it's just how do we call it, a bolter porn, just like five, just like shooting and pew pew and form messiah and anything like that.
It's going to, so there are two main points of view, one of which is a very idealistic cult member who has grown up within the cult, and they've grown up on a planet that is very harsh, and it's dominated by the Mechanicus, who basically it's a mining and factory world for them. And so she is a very dedicated believer in the idea that the kind of the sky, the angels from the sky are going to come for them and kind of let them ascend to a better way of life. And that's her perspective. The other perspective is a Mechanicus tech priest who is engaged in a vicious sort of political struggle with his superior on the planet, because he feels his superior is corrupt and inefficient, and he feels he could do a better job. And then he comes across the signs of cult infestation on the world, and to him that represents an opportunity for him to exploit in order to take over as the top priest.
So if in case he cleans this his cult, he'll be promoted. It's his point.
Maybe that's where he starts. It's possible he goes a little off the rails as the book goes on, and
I presume
starts to have some fairly unconventional ideas about how you could use Genestealer sort of biological material and things like that.
Wow. It's definitely worth reading. Well, just a point. This gunslinger from the cover.
Yes.
Is it her? Yeah, the first point of view.
Yes. Oh, my mind has gone. I'm trying to think what the type of unit in the game is called.
I don't remember either. It's just, well, 3 hands and like a cowboy.
The Kylomorph or Kelomorph.
Perhaps I don't remember.
In the English translation anyway. But they yes. So that I when I saw that entry in the Genestealer Codex, I kind of fell in love with it. So I thought, well, I got to have one of those in the book.
So it's one of our main heroes characters.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, thanks.
Переводчиков точнее даже.
Okay. Well, Adrian, there is a question sent by one of our publishers of Warhammer 40k in Russia. So we are, well, I don't think. Well, the question is, what do all Mechanicus, in your opinion, of course, what do they take for luxury? What is luxury for them?
Oh,
do they have such a thing, as in your opinion, of course?
I'm trying to think. It's a while since I read it, and the precise details have kind of fallen out of my head. But there is, you get quite a bit of what the lead tech priest is indulging, and I think he indulges in art, and he indulges there's a lot of the idea that he's kind of indulging in various luxuries that because of all the parts he has that have been replaced, he can't even really appreciate. So it's kind of food he can't taste, and art he can't even see, and all of this sort of thing. It's just the idea that he's almost sort of mimicking the way he's presumably heard that other humans can behave. But there are certainly, that because the tech priest protagonist has a lot of complaints about what's going on and the way the world is run. You do get quite a view into how tech priests go wrong, I suppose.
Well, it is. Is it? You mean about this Magos indulging into arts, and you have read it somewhere, or is it you have written about it?
It's in the story that I've written, but I can't
it.
remember precisely how it's described in the book.
Well, Adrian, so this is the last question from the list. What maybe when writing about this book, what inspiration did you have? Where did you take it? Maybe from some movies or books or your previous works, or something like that.
I mean, honestly, so my sort of starting point is usually to find the voices in a setting that haven't been used much, or find the perspective that hasn't been used. So it was very much as I actually no, there was something before. So I was about to say it was as I read through the Genestealer Codex that the ideas came to me, but a little while before, a few months before, I was at a board games sort of convention, and they had a Games Workshop store with a lot of the art from the Genestealer Codex, which hadn't been released at that point. And there is a fantastic piece of art, it might even be the cover art on the Codex, which shows a Genestealer uprising being kind of brutally put down by the Mechanicus soldiers. And to me, the picture actually seemed to have been made to show the cult as sort of tragic and heroic and doomed, rather than being the bad guys. So I think that was the starting idea. That just thought, well, that would be a really interesting take to write about, is actually trying to write sympathetically about the Genestealer cult, because it really is set up to be such a terrible thing.
Well, Adrian, is this one?
That is, yes, that is the one, I think.
Yeah.
Is it that?
No.
I think
yes.
I think so. Yeah. No, I think it is. That's especially the character sort of towards the bottom in the center with the big drill or whatever sort of heavy weapon he's got there.
Yeah.
There is, the artist has really got there's real desperation there, and the way that the Mechanicus officer is kind of positioned above with the sword coming down, it spoke to me a lot when I saw it, and it struck me, actually there is a story to tell there about the cult as hero and the cult as victim.
Well, Adrian, it's the end of the questions. You have already sold us your book. It's so quite great to read. Well, do you have any questions? Maybe for your fans, maybe for the Warhammer fans, something like that.
Not no, sorry, you've put me on the spot there. I don't have any questions. I mean, I hope those that pick the book up enjoy it, and if you have any Age of Sigmar players amongst your listeners, I do have a story for that coming out at some point next year as well.
Age of Sigmar's players, you mean?
Yes, yeah.
Would you mind repeating?
Sorry, the Warhammer Fantasy setting.
Yeah, I know Age of Sigmar. Yes. Yeah. So, and what about them?
If you have any players of that amongst the people who listen to your podcast, just to say, I've got an Age of Sigmar short story coming out at some point next year as well.
Okay, thank you. And then, do you like? Do you like fantasy battle settings? Do you like Age of Sigmar setting? And you know about the old world coming, and there are rumors about the literature and book stuff about it resurrecting. So, are there any hopes we will find you there among the authors of Old World?
It's certainly possible. It all depends. It's always down to whether the story idea sort of occurs to me. But I will once the old world setting has got going again, I'll have to see if any thoughts arise.
Он хочет написать.
According to your love to be a voice of those who are not given a voice among the factions, who would become your voice in Age of Sigmar and all
the Age of Sigmar story I've written is based on the ogres, because again it seemed to be a faction that didn't get a lot of love.
Ogre.
So I thought I would write about them, and they were a lot of fun.
Vlad says there's quite a bunch of ogre fans in Russia, and he says that in case you write a real book about ogres, he'll certainly buy it, because there are multiple points of yeah, he loves this stuff. Yeah, we have quite a lot of orc fans, and among those orc fans we have a bunch of ogre fans. So here, in case you'll have such a book, he'll certainly read your short story, and he'll certainly buy a book about ogres by yourself.
Thank you.
By you. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for this. Much fun for us. So Adrian, we came to our conclusion. I'll give a great thanks for you. It was quite a pleasure to have you here for us, for our fans, for your fans, for fans of Warhammer 40k and fantasy battles. So I'll now Vlad will say his goodbye in Russian. Then we would like you to have your farewell words, as we have. It's like our tradition on this channel. Our guest has his words for his fans, if in case you want to. And then we say goodbye to each other. So
okay.
Now it's okay. Adrian, thank you very much for coming. It was great to have you here. We have such a pleasure to have you among the authors of our favorite universe, our favorite setting. We hope you will like here, and we hope we will have more stuff, more books and novels from you. And we will. It's so great to have an author with such a different attitude to Xenos and to Xenoses and all those outcast factions. It's great to have you here. It's great to have you writing about Genestylers and not only about them. Thank you very much for coming. And here is your words. We are all ears in case you want to.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm delighted to find there's such an enthusiastic following for Warhammer in Russia. And all I can say is I hope people like the book when it's out.
Thank you very much for coming, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Take care and see you.
See you around.
See you, Adrian. See you around.
Yes.
It was great to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.